If you know the answer, raise your hand and I'll give you a ticket and you can go to the reception, or excuse me, the registration area and turn this in for some really great prizes. The first question is, what National Wildlife Refuge was once part of the world's largest cattle ranch?
I work there now.
Very good. Okay, and the last one is, he is known as the father of the refuge system, and he was responsible for the purchase of over 600,000 acres of prime wetlands. Who is he? Say it again? I heard it. Yep, very good. Fine. And with that, I will turn it over to our presenters.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Mike Noonan. I'm the one not named Molly, and we decided to go with this terrible title because we thought we would get only the die-hard attendees, those who really wanted to learn something about environmental education or wanted to learn something about modeling, and hoping you're not here for model airplanes. So I'm here just to briefly introduce the fact that we're going to have 4 parts to our presentation. First, you're going to hear from Molly about her work at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center in Minnesota. Then a few words from me about what I do in New York State. And then we are going to have a section we call Lessons Learned, which we hope will provide you with practical tips for what you might encounter if you start an EE program at your site. And then lastly, we're going to ask you to divide into groups who are actually going to engage you in a workshop, and that'll be our 4th element. So plan for that, and without anything else, here comes Molly Stoddard.
Okay, thanks for joining us. I think I should introduce a few folks who are here before I go on. Larry Martin is here. He's coming to the Fergus Falls Wetland Management District. August 15th is our new district manager. So wave to Larry, everybody. Yay, there's Larry. Okay, Chad Rates is here. He's the acting manager right now. So yay, Chad. And now, did I miss? It's kind of a bright light. I don't see Dave. Okay, I think anybody else, if I missed you, I'm sorry, but I don't see anybody else from our staff. So these are 2 people, though, who can help you out with questions or punt, at least, after the presentation. So I just want to point them out to you. Okay. Sweet. And where do I need to aim?
The left, the one on the right.
Oh, one on the right. We want to plug it in? Yeah. Helps to plug it in, doesn't it? Don't you love technology? But Dave Ellis, who you heard about this morning, he is going to be in and out of here. And yeah, okay, he's not in the back. That's Rick. Okay, so let me move on to Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. In case you haven't been there before, these are the buildings, part of it. Barn, dormitory, that's the yellow wing on the left, or a residential facility housing up to 80 people overnight for educational experiences. The purple building with the funky roof is the visitor center. So there's a couple classrooms in there, dining hall, kitchen, industrial kitchen, exhibit area, sod house with an exhibit, a sod house exhibit with a theater inside of it, what every modern sod house needs, and the offices. So the wing on the right that's yellow, that's the education wing, 4 more classrooms, and then a teaching greenhouse on the very end that we use for education and prairie restoration. These buildings sit on a 330-acre waterfowl production area that's part of the Fergus Falls Wetland Management District. We're out in northwest Minnesota. So there you have it. I've been so happy to hear wetland management districts being mentioned along with refuges this week. John Muir wrote that I only went for a walk and decided to stay out until sundown. For going out, I found, was really going in. At the PWLC, we're on a journey to help people find a way back into nature. When we do that in any number of ways, more the sort of traditional visitor services ways, with field trips and partnerships, workshops for the public and educators, residential experiences. We run a volunteer program, interpretation programs, outreach and information. But the road of traditional environmental education has led us to something very different, something that we have all learned a lot from, and that's the Prairie Science class. You heard from some of the students this morning in that program, but a lot of people think that's all the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center is the Prairie Science class. So I want to make the point on that previous slide that there's a little myth busting to be done. We are more than the Prairie Science class, but that's kind of what we're known for anyway. So what is this Prairie Science class anyway? It is a partnership, an education partnership with our local school district, where 230, last school year, 230 fourth and fifth graders spend half of their school day at our facility and in the outdoor classroom every day of the school year. It's staffed by 4 school district teachers at the PWLC. They are stationed there. Their classrooms are there. Their offices are there. It is not, that's another myth-busting thing. It is not taught by Fish and Wildlife Service employees per se. We get to go in once a week and work with them in the classroom and in the field for a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, but the other 4 days a week we are with other visiting school groups that come to experience prairie wetlands. Oh, and we also have been supported by interns. Plus, there are 4 other school district teachers at the elementary school who have those students the other half of the day, the other half of the school day. So they're bused back and forth between prairie wetlands and the elementary school. And I just want to give you a moment to let that sink in, because that's a very different way of doing education, and it's a very different way of doing environmental education on both counts. So what I'm talking about are the same 230 students every day come to prairie wetlands every day of the school year. They go outside for some part of that time that they're there. It might be 5 minutes if it's 35 below zero. It might be the whole 2 hours on an expedition south. Their curriculum is integrated, and I like the way Aaron Kamrowski put it best when he was a 5th grader, and I had to interview him as part of our evaluation of the Prairie Science class. He said, well, it's kind of like they put all those subjects in a blender and they mix it all up. And so you're learning them all at once, but it's so fun you don't even know you're learning. Okay? That's what we mean by integrated curriculum. Science, math, language arts, art, and health are the subjects that are taught at the PWLC to these students. They get their other subjects at Cleveland Elementary School. Okay, so the Prairie Science class has, Prairie Science class has helped us. Because of it, we've had to kind of conceptualize what we do and articulate it, and we struggled with that for a few years. We call it the PSC model, but we didn't know even really what we meant by the PSC model. So then we had to kind of flesh that out and then give it a name. Well, what we have come to now is what we call the compass. And this is our way of now bringing children and their parents often back in to nature. The compass we are working with has 4 parts, like a normal compass. Those 4 parts are place-based education, naturalists as teachers, phenology, and field journaling. So I'll give you a slide on each one of those in case you didn't get them written down. Students in the Prairie Science class use field journals every day when they're outside. They have a journal, just a handmade, homemade journal, copy paper, and cardstock, plastic binding. The school district provides it. They have 1 journal per month of the school year. So they have an October journal, and a September journal, and November, December, and so forth. So by the time they leave at the end of the school year, they go home with a nice little stack of 9 monthly journals. These journals are where they record their observations, their discoveries, their reflections. They measure, they draw. It's used in it's the best way to integrate all those different academic subjects is through this field journal. Okay, so that's just a little bit about field journaling. Naturalists is another point on the compass. We try to help them become naturalists. You heard that word thrown around this morning by the students. They are trained to become naturalists, to think like scientists, to act like scientists, and they also not only learn about that from us, but they learn about it from famous naturalists of the present and past. You see a few of those naturalists written there. And I just love it that Laura Bono walks up right now to take my picture because, hi Laura. Laura used to work at Prairie Wetlands Learning Center, so she can answer your questions too. And see that list, that a naturalist is list? I hope your ears were ringing 2 weeks ago, Laura, because we talked about you so much at our workshop. Laura came up with that list. She went for a walk out in the prairie and reflected on how does a naturalist behave, and she came up with that list. So thank you, Laura. We still use it. Okay. All right. Phenology is another point on the compass, the study of the timing of natural events and phenomena. Lots of ways that we do that. We observe and record the weather every day of the school year. And we look at trends over time with the weather. So that's part of phenology. We also do bio-blitzes, which you may have heard of before from in the scientific community. Sometimes bio-blitzes are done on refuges. We use them as an educational tool with students where they go out and inventory the name, if they know it, of every living thing they can find in the field. And then we might do that once a month or once a season, and again, compare trends over time. How is nature changing with the seasons? Bird Baylor is one of the naturalists we use. She wrote a great book about celebrations. I'm in charge of celebrations, and so we keep a class celebrations notebook in each room where students can write down the celebrations that they discover outside. And that's another great way to study phenology. Fourth point on the compass, place-based education. I have a really long definition here in my notes that I could read to you, but I'm not, because I like this better. That means not studying a different place, but going out your door and studying the place where you live really well. Ken Garahan, our previous director, would say that we're out there poking and prodding the prairie, looking for small things as well as big things. And we opt for, because we have students day after day, to go for depth instead of breadth of material and content. So speaking of bread, did you get that? Bread, breadth. Okay, nice segue, huh? How many family dinners do you think went like this last night? The parent says, how was school today? And the child responds, fine. Okay, you know the next question, right? Yep, so what'd you do today? Pulling it out of them. What's the answer to this question? Nothing. Well, we hear from parents that the conversation is much different around the table of Prairie Science class students. We can't get our child to stop talking about the Prairie Science class. We have to politely ask them to stop talking about it. One parent told us about how her student took her to the prairie, brought a notebook and pencil for the parent, sat her down, set up a field journal page for her, and taught her how to do some of the field activities that are done in the Prairie Science class. And she said, the parent said, that's the first time I felt like an equal with my child. We hear it from the parent, well, how do I put this? The spouses as well. So I'm not going to read all this. It's a long email sent from Jeannie Trosvig, I'm saying that for Laura, about her husband coming out to help with duck banding. Second week of school, kids are working with HAPIT, the Habitat and Population Evaluation Team, part of Division of Migratory Birds, co-located with us at the district, and they're banding wood ducks mainly. So even Dad couldn't stop talking about his experience with the Prairie Science class. All right, so that's enough about PSC, but I have to tell you that what you have heard and anything you've read about it or seen about it in the past is just the tip of the iceberg. You are looking at it from a distance, and you are only seeing this much of it. And I'm only saying that because I've been there. I've been in your chair hearing about it or reading about it and thinking, okay, I get it, and I'm just, don't mean to be rude, but you don't get it, really. You really need to come to Minnesota and get on the iceberg and see it up close to really understand how it works, because it's different. Okay, 10, I'm good. Okay, so now I want to share with you how we took this compass model and applied it to our field trips, our visiting school groups that come during the other 4 days of the week that were not with Prairie Science class. Prairie Wetlands Learning Center has been up and running for many years, and the staff originally set up some great programs that are fun and interactive. They're flexible, they're creative, very kid-friendly. But it was time for updating some of those lessons. Some weren't getting requested anymore. We didn't need to offer them. The state academic standards in science had changed several times since some of these programs were first provided or offered, so we needed to get with the shtick on that one. So, and we took a hard look at, well, some of them could be more educational maybe instead of interpretive. How many of you work at a station where you really do an interpretive program for an education audience? I used to at Horicon. I was the tour guide, and I knew where the leopard's frogs were sitting, and I knew I could point everything out along the way, and it was more interpretive, and that's not bad. It's just wasn't education. So some of our programs might have been about wildlife that you couldn't observe at the PWLC. So we decided we wanted to grow and shift our emphasis from interpretive programs, some that were indoors, required a lot of setup and takedown in some instances, were very broad in scope, single visits, and former state standards to this kind of paradigm. More educational, field-based, simpler, deeper, repeat visits, current state standards were applied, and we wanted to document them consistently with a standardized format. So we started with looking at rhythms of the refuge. And if you are at a point at your station where you're ready to evaluate what you're doing and shift gears, or you're just getting started, I highly recommend you look at rhythms of the refuge, because it provides you with a guidebook to lead you through a process. And the thing I like best about that process is that it includes looking at your station's mission, your station's CCP, the station's enabling legislation, or however it got started, and the Fish and Wildlife Service mission. So it's going to meet the needs of the site. And you do other things with it as well, but I'll just mention that one. We also looked at the new state academic standards, which, as you can tell right now, are kind of on hold with the state of Minnesota shut down. But we applied those lessons and decided we wanted to have one field investigation per season, per grade, preschool through 5th grade. And that would create a series. And we decided, we looked at, education theory and methodology, and decided we wanted to apply a reading strategy because it so closely parallels the scientific method. That's called KWL or KWHL. So this is an example of what that might look like on a whiteboard, getting ready to go out in the field. We might have a topic like animal families and ask students what they know about animal families. Brainstorm a list on the board. Ask them what they want to find out about animal families in the spring at the Prairie Wetlands when we go out the door. Those are questions, basically. So that's the wonder list. And then go out in the field, investigate some of those questions that are investigatable, come back in, and in black ink on the right, you see the answers to some of those questions based on what we observed outside. So it's really training them quite well, I think, to start using the scientific method. So making those series of lessons by seasons help bring in the phenology piece. We made a second choice lesson of nature journaling, but we use field journaling for pretty much every lesson now. And the 5th grade series is about naturalists, Bird Baylor, Aldo Leopold, Rachel Carson. So we were able to apply the compass. I gotta skip a page here. In the meantime, a grad student from Duluth, Britt Carlson, helped us make a filter, an evaluation filter that we could run our original programs through. That also helped us, and that's all I'll say about that. But if you'd like a copy of that filter, we need to find a way to get it to you. And I will talk to Maggie about that. So here's our end result. On our website now, you can go to our website and see one lesson per season, per grade. This is just the 4th grade series. A short description. You could see it this way, for example, or you might see it listed by season, so you get the whole preschool through 5th grade progression, and then last, that nature journaling second choice lesson. Also, you can click on the title of the lesson to get the full-blown lesson plan, so teachers can look at that to help them prep. Volunteers can look at it. If they're assisting us, any of our staff, including our interns, can use those to prep. We're not printing in paper anymore. It's all online. We haven't seen any other facility in the state who does environmental education, who has their lesson plans set up online like this, so we're hoping it's helpful. Okay. And now they're all in this consistent format, too. Before I turn it over to Mike, for him to share his model that they're using at Iroquois and Canisius, I want to ask you to think about, is there some part of this compass that you could apply to your site, that you could integrate or use, take home with you, no matter who you are or where your field station is? We're going to come back to that question later when we do the workshop. So I just want to give you a heads up about it. That's going to be the work part of the workshop. Think about how you can apply that, okay? Thank you. Oh, well, I think I want to ask, are there any burning questions right now that you need to throw out there? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Oh, this presentation, yes.
Yeah, I can answer that. There's some downloading stations throughout the conference that you can download all presentations to your USB drive, and they'll also be available for downloading off of americaswildlife.org.
Okay, great question. I do need to mention before I forget that we do invite you to come and observe Prairie Science class. We do offer a week-long training in the summer on teaching in the outdoor classroom. Sue's giving me a thumbs up. She just participated in that 2 weeks ago. And also this fall, NCTC is holding its EE Methods course in October at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. So we invite you and encourage you to come for that training, okay? Oh, one more burning question. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. Okay, I can tell you what that was. Because we don't just band and measure, duck, and do the science part, but we look at the heart part too. So wondering is a big part of that. And they were wondering like about the zebra kind of markings on the duck's feathers. And there was blood on a feather, and what was that from? And that was the one, he really liked that wondering part, the asking questions. Okay. Yes, Sue? Mm-hmm. Yes.
In what way does it evaluate? Is it like how relevant and current your programs are, or participant reactions, or what sort of evaluation?
Oh. It's more of an internal evaluation where we can run our programs through a filtering process where we can look at, well, does it have good education pedagogy? Does it meet the needs of the station? Does it blah, 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 there's some others. So, and then, you know, we can kind of go through this flow chart and decide, are we gonna keep it or are we not gonna keep it? Okay, so, and we did evaluate on a separate evaluation, we did evaluate formally the first 3 years of the Prairie Science class, and Laura was a big part of that too. And Julie Ernst, who was in my position before me, and then myself. So that evaluation suggests that students who are in the Prairie Science class learn at least as well, if not better, than their counterparts who are not in the program in the same school district, and that they are more motivated to learn, and that they are becoming actively becoming stewards, good stewards, and it does help meet our needs as stakeholders. So, okay, I'm out of here. Bye.
What determines whether a student is in the program or not?
Okay, in case you didn't hear that question, it was how does a kid get into this program, basically. So it's parent choice first. It's up to the parents to decide, do they want their kid in this program or not? It's not required. Then the school district makes a decision from there as to who is in. And we've never had to turn any kids away and say who want to be in it and tell them they can't be in it. There's always been room for any parents who want their student in the class. Sometimes we might have to throw a few parents who are not the parents, but a few students whose parents are unsure if they want to be in it. We have room for them and put them in. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question. Thanks, Mike.
So I love that segue because I also had that same question about evaluation, and often the difficulty in judging the efficacy of a program is having the proper control group. If there's already a self-selection for students going to one program or another, I work a lot with zoos, and in my city there's a science magnet school. The children whose parents choose to put them in a science magnet school are different. It's a different sort of family that chooses that option. And so if the science magnet students do better than the non-science magnet students, that doesn't mean the science magnet program is better. It just means if you get a bunch of children of doctors, lawyers, and professors who choose to read signs at zoos and choose to pick extra programs, they're coming from a different background. That bedevils all of us in terms of trying to evaluate things. All right, well, anyway, so I'm Mike Noonan, I'm from Buffalo, and my day job is as a biology professor at Canisius College. It's a small university in Buffalo, New York. And for many years now, I've been running a program called Canisius Ambassadors for Conservation. It's primarily focused on exotic wildlife, and so I come to you as an outsider, not at least originally focused on the refuge system or even on fish and wildlife. My program primarily focused on African wildlife, Asian wildlife, Australia, the kinds of really endangered species that people often see with World Wildlife Fund kind of initiatives. It has 7 program outlets. The first is we make school presentations, so I train college students who then go to the school. Here's a student who's talking about the importance of killer whales or the beauty of killer whales and inspiring children to love killer whales. And over the years, we've reached a few thousand students that way. We have, and this is our main program, we have presentations. We run essentially the sea lion shows, the elephant shows, some of the dolphin shows at our local zoos and aquariums. And this year we'll pass 200,000 attendees at such shows. We get people in the audience to raise their hand to pledge not to put pesticides in the drain because they love the sea lions, that sort of thing. We have kiosks at various interactive kiosks that we've programmed at various stations around our zoos and also in fish and wildlife locations. We've reached quite a few thousand people that way. We have very extensive web pages. The web address is conservenature.org if you care to look at it. Conservenature.org has hundreds of pages underneath that website, and we will soon pass 250,000 unique visitors. Almost all the visitors turn out to be children who are completing some sort of a class assignment or the other, and they're worldwide. It truly is a worldwide audience that we reach. This way. I'll get emails from kids in Africa doing homework assignments. We've made our own video productions. Our school presentations were successful enough that people asked us to make them more formalized, and we now have 3 video productions of our own, some of which have actually won a few awards or the other, and they're in libraries, in school libraries and also public libraries now, and we've now passed 10,000 viewers with our videos. We're in the process now of turning some of our presentations into booklets. We've just come back from Australia, and we're doing a book on the wonder of birds. This is what it's going to look like, and that's going to be distributed free to schools, to school libraries, and also to school teachers. But the reason why I am here, and my 7th and my favorite arm of the program, is at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge in Western New York. I'm on the board of the local Friends group, and so it was a natural transition for me. The Friends group said, well, why aren't you doing something also here with local conservation and local wildlife? And I, of course, responded with, duh, of course I should be, and started it up. So I'm going to tell you about that program now. But there's a common theme to all of these arms. This approach has a consistent approach, and that is the use of a flagship species. You probably, if you're educators, you're probably aware of this. That we say that if a person is already in love with the elephant, or it certainly isn't difficult to get somebody to be in love with an elephant, the elephant, if you're interested in conserving the elephant, then you of course have to conserve the land that the elephant lives on and all the species that are underneath the elephant in terms of its ecology, and so the elephant serves as this flagship. The formula is that I select college students. They actually have to try out. It's quite a prestige to be part of the program. So I might have 50 people apply for only 10 positions. So I get to pick the best students. So here's an example. I give them a day before the tryout. I give them a randomly assigned species. The one on the left was assigned to give a 3-minute presentation for 6th graders on flamingos. They had 24 hours, she had 24 hours warning. The one on the right had 24 hours warning to give a presentation on ladybird beetles. Which one did I choose? The one on the left. She showed up in a flamingo outfit, she did a flamingo dance, she had a flamingo puppet that she somehow located within 24 hours. She was animated, she spoke 6th grade, and I chose her. And so I go out with truly excellent college students. And then I go into the field. So upper left, in 1 year we were focused on bighorn sheep. So that's us in the Rocky Mountains, and we're in Costa Rica, the coast of California. The middle picture, we're in the Kingdom of Bhutan in the Himalayan foothills. The lower right is Sri Lanka, and so on. So no wonder college students apply to participate in this, because this is all paid for by the grant that supports this program. So they get to go to Sri Lanka for free. Or they get to go down the Eastern Flyway to stop at 20 different national wildlife refuges for free. I pay for it. But it's not a vacation, it's a 3-credit course. They get crammed, 3-credit course crammed into essentially 3 weeks. So they're studying in the airplane, they start every morning with an exam, and they go to bed every evening with an extensive reading assignment. They're studying in the field, and they're practicing exercises into midnight every night. But the main thing I do is I take them to places that make them fall in love with nature. Having been there, you can't not talk about forests with a beating heart, with your heart rate increasing. And so I get them so that their heart rates increase. I get them to the point where I have to force them back into the plane to leave. They want to stay wherever I've taken them so badly. But when we do get back, we spend the winter time practicing over and over again, rehearsing over and over again our refuge presentations. So there they are in the winter at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge practicing. They're in this lower right, lower left, I mean, they're in the classroom practicing. And then come springtime, they're still practicing, so that it's polished to the point of as perfect as I can get it. During this time, we also are sending out this flyer to every school, every middle school in our 4-county district, and my secretary is handling inquiries and lining up a schedule. So come the field trip season, which in Buffalo is May. So unlike Molly, and unlike everybody except Molly, I don't get them every day of the year. We have traditional day trips to our refuge, and so our day trips occur. We're squeezed between the end of college and the end of the elementary school year, and that gives us 5 weeks. So we have a 5-week season. And so at the beginning of that, by the end of our practices, my team is uniformed, practiced, and professional. And then the buses start arriving. So we have 150 students, 150 students a day arrive every day for 5 weeks, different students every day, different schools every day. And when they arrive, they're given a pair of Loaner binoculars. They're broken into groups of 10. They're assigned a CAC guide, that's a Canisius Ambassadors for Conservation guide, and then off into the trails of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge on what seems like a spontaneous walk in the woods, but is actually carefully choreographed because we know where there's a nesting yellow warbler, and we know where there's a log that's decaying, and we know where there's a shallow littoral zone, and we know where there's a pelagic zone, and we have lessons. Oh, let's take a moment and look at this hollow log. But that seems spontaneous, but is actually very choreographed. When we are done with that, we retreat to the refuge headquarters, and they have a picnic lunch. Picnic lunch where the students, the guides, stay with them. So the idea is they're science college students, which middle school children think are cool. College students, hanging out with a college student is a cool thing. And so they look to them as role models, and they say quite openly, yeah, I'm a bird nerd, and I'm proud of it. I'm excited about it. I openly get excited when I see a red-winged blackbird. And I'm cool, and I get excited about to see an open red-winged blackbird. And then the last part of the program is we play games. We play Jeopardy, and we play Pictionary. And it's based upon the lessons learned. So I have students screaming the word detritus in competition with each other. I have students racing to try to name 3 species of bird that have sexual dimorphism. You know, that the males look different from the female, and they're hitting each other for not remembering that the wood duck is an example or something like that. And so what is that at the lower right? What can you guess? It's Pictionary for the water cycle, and somebody got it. I mean, I don't know. I would have gotten water cycle, but that was the contest, and the team who screamed it out as soon as. Could have been anything, of course. We get our feedbacks, and our feedbacks are. I love this, and you know, you love that last line. I will now appreciate nature, and I'll go again to the refuge. That's what we like to see, and that's part of our goal. It doesn't end there. We actually have web pages under conservenature.org. There are web pages, a series of them for teachers to use as follow-up quizzes if they wish. If they want to follow up for the next day, there are quizzes on Iroquois, there's quizzes on bird migration, there's quizzes on wetlands in general, and there's even a quiz on the National Wildlife Refuge System. So the key elements of the program: suitable field site. If you want to do this, you actually obviously have to have something that's worth coming to study. If you follow my model, it has to have a charismatic element. I used birds, I used migratory birds, I used warblers. It's a little harder than teaching about killer whales, but to get kids to, but they love warblers. Once they see a warbler, once anybody sees a warbler, they're pretty much in love with it. And so we use warblers, and it has to be obviously near a school district. Choosing collect college students, that's of course your challenge if you're not a college professor. If you're not, you don't have access to them, but you have to choose Audubon volunteers or friends groups. You can make this work, but you have to assemble a team. And you have to do, it doesn't just happen. It's a mistake, in my opinion, to just take a bunch of friends volunteers and say, go teach about wetlands. I practice this to death. I practice this to death to the point it's either perfect or it doesn't run. The recruitment, see it says it's labor intensive. Item number 4, it's labor intensive. I have the benefit of having a secretary. If you have to have somebody who's going to devote hours and hours to this task. And you have to have a friendly, exciting hook to catch the students. I made it into a competition. And then my version is we play games. That's how we made it. So for a while, we made it so that it was more of a sit-down exercise. We gave it up. Students didn't want to come to the field to do sit-down. At the end of the year, they wanted something fun, so we made it into a game. So that's where you can learn about more of this. In fact, my own personal website is at the top, and I have, because I've been asked this over the years for advice from other friends group, there's a hidden website with that address, CAC, and then CAC _ friends _ groups, is for, you can see the whole program. You can see the script of our program, and there's also a video version of our program that you feel free to download and use it or don't use it if you find pieces of it that might be useful. Okay, so now we're going to go into the third section. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Yeah, yeah, no, you're gonna come up as soon as I'm gonna do the first one, and you're gonna do the next one.
I'll just stand back here.
So, ready? Okay, so lessons learned, these are when Molly and I met each other, one of the first things we said was, I beg your pardon? We should talk about tips. And I think that many of you are probably also in the same EE role, and maybe you can add to these tips. But it's remarkable because even though we have quite different approaches, we had exactly the same list of lessons learned. So after having done this for all these years, here are our tips if you're thinking of starting one up from scratch. First off, tap the prior experience of others. One of the things people with gray hair are constantly telling young people is, well, I did that already, and here's what I learned when I did that. And so there are many, many EE programs, and so learn about them. So we know that if you just Google environmental education, you can come to many sources. The EPA has wonderful resources, but also any other EE programs at other refuges are great examples. So we surely advise that. But we also have many others, and I think I'm going to switch for a moment. Molly?
All right, as you heard, we both work in partnership with other organizations. It's a great way to get things done. The Prairie Science class wouldn't happen if it wasn't a partnership. The Fish and Wildlife Service could not do the Prairie Science class by itself, and neither could the school district. So, and we're not the only two that are in that pot. So there's other partners as well that we need help from. And you may be already tapping into some of these. They may be new. There may be others that we haven't listed. But I'd say one I want to touch on is the scientists at the bottom of the page. This is going to come up again, but in the last couple years, we've started working, well, we already worked with Happet in banding waterfowl. Then we added a research project with one of the biologists from our district where students are doing the field work in an actual study to determine the effectiveness of mowing, seeding, well, burning, seeding, and then mowing in the summer a couple of times, primarily older grassland stand that doesn't have much forb diversity. So they're helping with a long-term study on that. And then just 2 weeks ago, we added mist netting and songbird banding to our summer camp for 5th and 6th graders with the help of a master bander who works at the Detroit Lakes Wetland Management District, Greg Hoke. So don't overlook your scientists. Really, they have the coolest job in the world. All you got to do is go with them, with what they do. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to say there. I'll go on to the next one. Okay, we both encourage you to develop, if you haven't already, a proactive strategy, an approach of some kind, a way to put sideboards on what you do. We all can become reactive to requests that we get, and it's nice to be able to know what can I say yes to and what can I say no to in order not to get overscheduled or burned out. So because it's so friendly for the refuge system, we recommend Rhythms of the Refuge. And in that process, this is what I want to say, part of that process is includes talking to the other refuge or district staff about what they think you should be teaching. That was probably one of the best things we did at HorCon with this process when I was there. I got to talk to our biologist. There she is right there, Diane Pentelow. I told you I was going to talk about you. Our manager, our assistant manager, our biotech, several other staff, and I'm going to tell you in front of all these people, that I got the best information from our biologist because she's out there every day in the field. She knows the resource, she knows the issue, she's on the ground. She had tremendous way to articulate what she thought we should be educating people about. So don't overlook the field people.
Molly, I want to add one thing.
Yes.
I do not have access to this website, so for those of you who are in my shoes, be aware that this recommendation has a serious limitation.
Yes. Do you see?
You need somebody like Molly to get access to such a website. I understand it's wonderful, but volunteers and friends, if you're here, do not have access to it.
If you look at that address, there's an HTTPS. That means it's on one of our secure websites. You have to be on a Fish and Wildlife Service computer in order to access it, because you have to put in your Active Directory password stuff. So, okay. I think you were going to do this one. Oh, you want me to go? Okay. So depth, not breadth. You heard me mention this earlier. People in my profession tend to think we get so passionate and so excited. We want to teach those kids everything we can in that short amount of time that we have them. But there are other people, like their teachers and their parents and their relatives or whoever, that are also teaching them all lifelong. You don't have to teach them everything. And best of all is to focus on that local ecosystem in their own backyard. It's amazing I'm amazed when I take kids out and we look at a cattail plant, and they know what a cattail is, but they can't differentiate between the leaves and the stem of a cattail plant because they're just not familiar. But you'll travel to go somewhere on a trip, and you'll see all the grand sights. You know, how much do we know about our own backyard and what's in it? Okay, this was you.
So you have to decide what level of focus you want. I mean, one can, if you want to have a lesson about the entire earth, you can do it. You can have a lesson about just one leaf on one plant and one insect on one plant. You can do that. You can do the pond. But I think what we're saying is our advice is you choose one. You choose one lesson for the day, not try to teach the leaf's role in the pond on the earth. That's too much for one day.
And some of it's too abstract for children to understand. Children are concrete thinkers. They understand what they can see and feel and hear and touch, taste, whatever. You go broader and they get lost sometimes. So, place-based education. I mentioned that earlier as part of the compass as a form of environmental education. We're not teaching about energy conservation and recycling, although those are great topics, but we're teaching about and getting them out in their place to learn about what's there. I think I'm kind of beat a dead horse here. Get outside. Use your local environment as your classroom. It's easy to teach indoors. There's more control. They can do that at school. If kids are coming to your refuge and they're coming inside your visitor center or office to watch a video, they could do that at school. Send it to them in the mail. Let them watch it there, and then when they come to you, they're coming to an outdoor classroom that they can't go to at school, most likely. They don't have hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of acres to explore at their school. So we'd encourage you to minimize those video presentations on site. Minimize sit and listen, what we're calling sit and listen events. Those might also be called field days, where you rotate through 10 stations and you're at a station for 10 minutes. You're not getting much depth, but lots of breadth. There's not much observation of wildlife probably going on in that case, or it's a lot of telling and listening on the student's behalf instead of an active dialogue between the two. So just a few subtopics there. Did you want me to go back?
No, it's good.
No? Okay.
Oh, yeah, go back,
Okay.
please. The left-hand image is from Prairie Learning Center, and you see the students are actually actively engaged in learning. The right-hand image is one of mine from Iroquois, and I'm embarrassed to say that I chose that image because obviously one of the students correctly learned about magnifying glasses when examining insects. The other clearly misunderstood the use of binoculars. And I just want to point out that most of the students correctly learned. You hadn't noticed it, but I did, and I was smiling. So
Maybe they're backwards. You turn them around. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Teach to the whole child. We like to sometimes fill children with facts and figures that they will probably forget. Information overload, but don't forget that sense of wonder. Don't forget to wonder. Look at the emotional side. They're a whole person. They're not just a brain, but they have a heart as well. And if they don't love nature, they may not be interested in being in it or ultimately working with it. Oh, I think I got ahead of myself on that one, but also to engage all their senses. So emotional lessons. Yeah, I did get ahead of myself a little bit. Sorry.
We can't say that too many times. We feel that the lesson should be emotional more than anything else. So now go back a second.
Okay.
So yeah, this is another one of my slides, and I just want to tell you one of those children actually. I mean, look at their faces, and this is them looking at birds. And one of them took me aside, and it was a young man, and he was nearly teary, and he said, "Just look at that bird. Look at the marks on it." And he was so emotional, and I joined the group, and I expressed my agreement with him, and then I was shocked because I came to see that he was looking at a robin. He was from inner city Buffalo, and he was looking at a robin. And my first reaction, and I caught myself before it came out of my mouth, was, "Oh yeah, that's a robin." But I caught it. I never expressed it, and I said, "A robin. Look at the white on his face, and no one ever sees that except unless you look through binoculars. Look at the deep, rich color on his breast. Look at the shades of gray, as dark and light gray." And he said, "Tell me the name again." It's an American robin. And he was nearly teary-eyed at how pretty it was. And for me, it made my day. It made my year. I was giving water to a thirsty person, as far as I was concerned. And this is this sense of wonder that Molly and I talk about, that Molly was talking about. So now go forward, please, just one. These are also my images, and I remember these. Look at these kids are screaming about ecological concepts. They're happy and jumping up and down about their knowledge or their understanding of ecological concepts. But this lower right image, I'm particularly proud of. These, we got a call, could we please have a high school group come? And it was a high school for the children who weren't allowed to go to their high schools because of violence problems or other criminal problems. Children who weren't allowed to go to their high schools, would we take them? And so we did. And in fact, they came on a day when a fourth grade class came. We normally do 4th through 8th, and we had a fourth grade class and a tough high school group. But once they were out on the field, they went crazy. They were in love with it. They actually ended up seeing a Scotland tanager. The guide got so excited about seeing a black-winged redbird instead of a red-winged blackbird. That's what we call them. And they were bragging like crazy, and they came back and they went to that little fourth grade group, and they just started talking about their black-winged redbird, and then they competed side by side, and they were giving each other high fives and pounds and so on. It was great. I don't know if they remember the word detritus, but I am convinced that they now love wetlands. I'm convinced of it, the way they acted.
One more image for this. Here's a journal page from a student at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. I'm sorry, I forget the age of the student. But the titles of each quadrant are emotional titles: wonder, surprise, mystery, delight. I love that wonder. Whatever this bird feather is from, it must be a beautiful phenomenality. I love it when kids invent new words.
Molly, hold for just a second. I don't know if you were at the workshop on interpretation just an hour ago before lunch, and the point of the lesson was people, their attitudes may change and their emotions may change, and they're likely to forget the facts. But if they come to love the topic, then the main effect will be achieved.
Absolutely. Avoid ecophobia. The Last Child in the Woods and the book Beyond Ecophobia are both great resources for this topic. And Beyond Ecophobia is a short one, but it's to the point. Again, traditionally in environmental education, I've seen it time again, whether it's on a refuge or in a classroom or where. But we are scaring our kids away from nature by teaching them about the big issues too soon. When they are so young and emotional, they don't need to learn about global warming and climate change. My daughter started talking about global warming when she was in 2nd grade. I did not teach it to her. She got it from school and the media, perhaps. But the research shows that we have a generation of children who have learned about the issues too soon, and they are turning away from nature because of it, because they're overwhelmed by their fear. How can we solve these problems? We need to wait till they're older in high school to start giving them these larger issues to deal with.
But not only that, the world is full of evidence that a positive attitude is warranted. We have lots and lots of success stories.
Yes.
The world isn't coming to an end, or at least it isn't if we don't let it. And there are all sorts of species that are being brought back from extinction. There are all sorts of mitigation efforts being made, and it's successfully being made. It's not like we minimize problems, but children should not be afraid of the future. That's something we both feel very strongly about. Our children should not be afraid of the future. So this is the topic of logistics. Especially for the day trips, if you don't have a Prairie Wetlands Learning Center and you're just going to do a day trip to a refuge, not a park. A park is built for people. A refuge is primary mission is not people, and so you have to worry about things like porta potties. I couldn't run my program if the refuge didn't provide porta potties. These kids are lining up, and they have a limited time frame. You can make your length of your program set by how long it is till the next bathroom break, or what to do with a kid who's in urgent crisis, bathroom-wise, or a teacher. The teacher's needed as much as the kids. Yeah, I said we arrange for a picnic lunch with the group. We have to arrange some kind of lunch, and there has to be a place. I've been to many, many refuges, and most of them don't have a place to absorb 120 children at a time. It's just not an option. 120 children at a time isn't an option. We have a one-seater toilet in our visitor center for the girls and for the boys. One-seater. Number one, it couldn't handle the traffic, and number two, it backs up. So you just can't do it if you have that kind of arrangement. So we had to arrange for picnic tables, among other things. Bus turnarounds. Most of the places, half the places I wish to take children on a refuge, a bus can't get there because the bus simply can't turn around. You got to handle these sorts of issues. Or there's a limited, my program could be double or triple in size if I could handle more buses in the parking lot, or if I can handle more children on the boardwalk that is a bottleneck. So these kinds of logistics. And whether or not it's going to be wheelchair accessible or even handicapped accessible in other ways. Some areas of your refuge probably are, but most probably are not. And I remember, I look forward to visits from children of this type. These children also show up, tears in their eyes. They see a bird. I have a trail that involves crossing a highway. For me, it's a high blood pressure event every time. Getting children across a local highway where dump trucks come screaming down at 55 miles an hour, I can scarcely watch it. And equipment, whether it's just simple equipment like me with 150 pairs of binoculars a day, and I start with 150 pairs of binoculars in any given week, and I end with 120. Because as much as children love birds, I guarantee you that one thing that they like more than that is spinning binoculars. They seem not to be able to just stand there spinning them. Go around their neck is the last place that the binoculars go. What to do with the rain, and it's going to rain. It's going to rain in Buffalo, and children and their parents apparently never watch the weather forecast. They go by the day before. If it's sunny the day before, they're going to come in shorts and a T-shirt, regardless of what the sky looks like. And if it's rainy the day before, they're going to come in a raincoat if it's sunny. But so some schools, they show up prepared, but many don't. They show up, this is children with their lunch bags and making rain hats out of them. And we have to have a plan for this because they're there for a day. We have a place to retreat. In general, we both advise that you start with a pilot project. If you're a beginner, just pick a first attempt, get a school group, one school group, and run it, and you'll discover 90% of your logistic problems. They'll occur to you as you do that first. If you want to run a program next summer, do a pilot project this summer with one or two groups, and then you'll learn what you're going to need. So clearly, the main lesson of our presentation, the title, is using models. And so you heard about Molly's wonderful compass model, and my more generic flagship species model. And of course, there are many other approaches. I clearly recommended you get an approach and let that guide your program. And so now we both think one of the best things about coming to a conference like this is a chance to talk to each other. So we're actually going to ask you to participate in a workshop. We're going to ask you to now engage with each other. And I want you to clump up in just a minute. The workshop involves the following hypothetical tasks that you, regardless of who you really are, you're assigned the task of developing an EE program at a national wildlife refuge that we've named the Beau Fleuve, beautiful river. Yes, I guess if you want to escape, now's a good time to escape. No, it's good. Now, you won't there are other sessions that start at this hour, so I hope that not everybody escapes, because it really is a Beau Fleuve. By the way, do you guys, while people are leaving, and do you know, you want some trivia? My city, the town of Buffalo, was not named after the bison. There were never bison in Buffalo. It was named after Niagara Falls, and it was named Beau Fleuve in French. Beau Fleuve became Buffalo. So this is your hypothetical refuge. You're on the Gulf Coast in the great state of Trinidad. And you're at wetlands. You have brackish wetlands. You have estuaries. You have freshwater wetlands on your refuge. You have your primary mission is a place for migratory birds, and you have charismatic birds like bald eagles on your refuge. You have, among other things, whooping cranes on your refuge. You have osprey on your refuge. You have snow geese, and you have warblers. Every warbler in the world goes through your refuge. You've had a hurricane wipe out everything that's standing on your refuge. 3 years ago, everything that's taller than a few feet was blown down, including half of your buildings. And offshore, you've recently had a big oil spill that all of us know about and everybody knows about. You have dolphins swimming offshore. You have crabs. You have urban encroachment because everybody in the world loves your beaches, likes to go suntanning on your beaches. And also, you have agricultural runoff issues, like every refuge. So your task, you're supposed to now clump together in groups of 5s and 10s. 5s, actually, because we have a relatively small crowd. 5, so clump. Begin clumping. Stacy, begin passing. And you're supposed to sketch out in the next 5 minutes, by talking to each other, an EE program, the elements of an EE program. You're supposed to address all of the 4 points on the compass model. Make friends with each other. Say hello, my name's Bob. So regardless of who you really are, and regardless of where you're from, you're now on the Gulf Coast. No problem. Here you are. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. And so just come to agree with each other on a few sentences, a few concepts on what you're going to do that's place-based, how you're going to make your program place-based, how you're going to make your program reflect the rhythms of nature, how you're going to tie into naturalists as teachers, and how you're going to tie in nature journaling. And I'm going to leave you, I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes, and we'll get back to you. So we're going to start calling on you in a few minutes, and so in just a minute or two, if you can, is that too soon? In a few minutes then. So I don't even know if we need a microphone now because we're down to 4 groups, but just because it's a big room, I'll use the microphone. And the way this is, I hope, going to soon dissolve into just a conversation among all of us. But let's start by just seeing how the groups addressed each of these points. The first point is place-based. What did your group have to say? Which from your, what's the name of your group? The front right-hand group. Every group has a name, doesn't it? What did we do with place-based? So the answer is salt marsh. So I take it from that, or at least I believe, Molly, is it correct that means they would choose to make their lesson focus on the salt marsh since this is what they have, right? What did you guys do? Yeah, so that's also place-based, focused on the recovery, the ecological recovery from the disasters, the ecological recovery from the man-made and natural disasters. That would be a place-based lesson, and it would be a way to focus on a lesson.
That would not be, if I could jump in, that would be not, well, in some ways, not that much different from what we do on the prairie, because we're looking at restoring what was previously agricultural land to tallgrass prairie.
Right, man-made efforts to restore and also, yeah. Right, positive spin, exactly right. In fact, your group said you were a little worried about ecophobia, right, with these disasters. But yeah, where I am at Iroquois, it was forested and heavily forested, and now the forests are returning. And so we focus less on the fact that it's a secondary forest, but more on the fact that it's going to soon be, or eventually be, a wonderful forest again in the future. And so I love that. And what did your group decide?
We actually are looking at bird populations and migration to locate the places that they're coming from.
Yeah, I love that theme too, Ma. You agree? If you one of the great lessons about bird migration, that's what we do, is we say, we just saw these same birds in the Everglades. Do you guys ever go to Disney World, we say? You ever go to Disneyland in Florida? Well, when you're there, in the winter, you can see this same bird that's here now, and now you have a connection between your place and other. So I hope that would match for place-based, yeah? I hope this is all beneficial. When I participate in workshops like this, I always find it interesting. You have 4 groups assigned the same task and 4 different answers, all legitimate, and you can hear each other think. What did your group do?
Our group was similar to group that earlier talked about movement and hurricane, movement of swimming line and how that's going to impact vegetation and wildlife over time. And also the place where what's going to impact the oil.
Yeah, isn't this great? I mean, if you take the nature of the place and the salinity line, you have this tremendously rich lesson to teach to tie to that salinity line, because you can now talk to them. These will be children who have experienced a hurricane. You can talk to them about, they know the impact on their house, they know the impact on their family, on their school. Now you're just going to say, here's the impact on this place. So I love that answer. I love all of them. So let's do the same thing for the rhythms of nature. What did you guys decide about that?
Knowledge.
Isn't that timing of events?
Right, you're right. The rhythms of nature, that's No. We focus on calling it close.
See, one of the things about timing is that populations go up and down. That's what you're referring to. And the pelican. Pelican is so charismatic. I would jump all over the pelican with my flagship on. What's your... That'd be my fault. No, that'd be Stacy's fault. See, that's Stacy's fault. What did your group do? That's what you do at Prairie Wetlands. What did your group do?
Well, our group decided to use an already awesome program that Teach Wildlife already has. They deal with technology, the Sister Shorter program, and actually tie in schools along the flyway, and use that.
No, I think that's fantastic, right? You tie into what other people already are doing well. Listen, we also want to have a chance to have a conversation with everybody, so let's just keep moving rapidly. What did you do with naturalists as teachers? What did you do? Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is so charismatic, you can't go wrong with Teddy Roosevelt. Did you also pick up on something? That's Stacy's fault. Stacy, why did you keep... By the way, and not every lesson has to have naturalists in it, but for this exercise, it was based upon Molly's compass model. So what did you guys do?
Well, our group is going to use the rafts of
Great example, right? Bring somebody in who's actually been cleaning oil. Oh, cool. What a great idea. So, and then lastly, journaling. Did you have a contact? The challenge with the journaling is if you have a day trip, it's quite different from Molly's case where she has a whole year's worth of these children. But even on a day trip, one can do journaling. It's a good idea. What did you decide this summer to do?
Good. She basically said if they do the journaling, can you get some of the journals back so that it's a day trip, but then another group comes a month later, their journal is there, and the other journal, and then you see that, oh, there were no pelicans in this journal, but this journal, there's pelicans, and all of a sudden there's lots of pelicans, and you can show.
I love this idea. Let me just repeat that, and everybody can hear it. The idea was to let the children have their journals, but also have somebody have a copy of them, so that after the new children in any given visit create their own journals, they can see that it's going to feed into a stream of journals, and they can actually read what other people have written, other children have written, and detect patterns in it, like bird migration patterns, movements of pelicans into the group, in and out of the refuge. What did your group do? I know nothing. I think that's especially a good suggestion. And in fact, my own program is leaning in this way for people to be able to blog or set up a social media site where people can post photos. Half the children are, we see a frog, half the children are whipping out their phones and taking a picture of the frog. And if there was some central place where they can see each other's photos and see each other's, I think it's, no wonder you didn't do, you had such a good idea. You were, and how about you? Yeah, so that's a similar eBird and having a bird list. In fact, in our program, each group develops a competitive bird list, and we're looking for ways for that to be posted. What about you guys?
Well, I agree with, you talk about connecting disasters, talk about achieving disasters, but also, knowledge is appropriate. He said, talk about security, talk about what happened. You should write about that.
Oh, I so love this idea. Everybody hear that? It's write about their emotional experiences, and especially expressing concerns that they have. Now listen, let's end there for a moment, and I know we wanted to do one last thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one last thing is I promised you I'd come back to this later, and now it's late. So, is there some component of the compass that you can take, or the flagship species model, that you can take back with you to your site and apply or use, integrate in what you're already doing, or what you want to do? If so, share that with us so we can all learn and learn from each other.
Well, ours has kind of been ongoing. We're supposed to get elementary, and we have manual training, and we have a children's video that's made several years ago with Sandy, the sandhill crane, and right now we're redesigning the visitor center exhibits, and we're incorporating Sandy, the sandhill crane, who is going to be conveying special messages geared at youth, and so that's the way that we're creating crane, cartoon crane.
Okay, so that's an example of the flagship.
Right,
Flagship.
that's the flagship.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
We're going to use the phenology too, the big white birds going from Wisconsin to Florida.
Oh, sure. That'd be easy and fun to do. So monitor it all the way down back. Plus they're rearing and training as we go through.
But this is the, I'm thinking it's a good.
But that's good technology. And also, Journey North, that program, that tracks, that's another way to use technology, not just with cranes, but with many other species of wildlife. That's on the internet at journeynorth.org.
We have only 2 minutes left. Does anybody else? We do as well. Cats, domestic cats even do.
And the students are, I'll ask, what is the biggest problem for the next concern, what's the biggest, you know, and then we'll come up with buildings, and there'll always be one student who will raise their hand. So, I mean, is that, I mean, we need to educate them all.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's an anthropophobia. I think anthropophia is what the future is going to be good. The fact that you should be a responsible cat owner. And by the way, there's I think, a really good 4-minute video clip on that issue on conservative.org. You're welcome to download it. It's how to be a responsible pet owner, and it's specifically about cats and other pets, but specifically cats taken from songbirds.
I just wanted to add one thing to that thought. I do bring up some of the negatives, even with the smaller kids, but I always give them a possible solution they can do.
Yeah.
I don't give them the oil spill issue, but, you know, with cats, you know, keep your cat indoors, or a fishing line, or, you know, whatever. I try to, if there's a problem, I at least try to give them something they can do personally to improve the problem, so I don't give
Well,
them
I
just
think we both agree with you about that. It's not like we shouldn't tell them that there's problems, but then immediately turn around and say, look at the great whales, or look at the American bison, or look at the air. You know, when I was a young man, the air was much dirtier than it is now. Yeah, dirty air is clean. You can make it clean, but it's clean, right?
Right, I agree. Yeah. It's not that we should shelter them or avoid the problems and the issues, but I feel don't force them to own it. They're children. And I think more important is to get them outside and get connected with nature, build that relationship between the children and nature, so that when they do encounter these problems, they care enough to want to do something.
Stacy is giving us the sign of God. So, listen, we all are a part of the same family here. We all just stayed for this whole hour and a half